The resignation of Rushanara Ali as the Labour Party's Minister for Homelessness is a textbook case of political hypocrisy, one that has exposed the very tensions between the policies politicians advocate in their personal conduct. Accusations that Ali ejected tenants from one of her London homes only to raise the rent by £700 a month have sparked outrage, leaving many to question whether her role as homelessness minister was ever truly sincere. Rushanara Ali has championed the rights of renters, advocated for the Renters' Rights Bill, which aimed to increase tenant protections, prevent exploitation, and prohibit landlords from relisting properties at higher rents immediately after eviction. It was a clear stance against unfair landlord practices and an attempt to tackle the issues contributing to homelessness, yet under her watch, her own actions starkly contradicted the very ideals she sought to promote. Ali evicted tenants from her property, citing that it was being sold, only to re-let it shortly after at a higher rent. This not only undermines her credibility, but paints her as an active participant in the vicious system she claimed to oppose. What makes Ali's actions particularly problematic is the position she held. As the Minister for Homelessness, her role required a deep understanding of the struggles faced by tenants. The moral implications of her actions are profound. She's exploiting tenants for profit. The increase in rent by £700 was labelled extortion by former tenants. The rent hike from £3,300 to £4,000 is a stark example of the very practices she herself had publicly condemned. And this type of fire and rehire eviction, where tenants are thrown out only for the landlord to profit from a new higher rent, is exactly what the Renters' Rights Bill was attempting to curtail. Her resignation highlights a deeper issue in politics. When politicians fail to align their actions with the rhetoric they espouse, it erodes public trust. And she's a representative of a party that claims to stand up for vulnerable citizens, and she should have known better than to profit from the very system she promised to reform. Her resignation came as a result of mounting pressure from all sides, and it wasn't merely a result of her actions, but of the political fallout it caused. That she had to be pushed makes it even worse. This is a person who clearly has no honour and no sense of what is right or what is wrong, and she is part of, or she was part of, this government. How many other people in the present government have the same twisted sense of what is right and what is wrong? How many other hypocrites are there hiding under the cabinet table? The damage to Labour's agenda is considerable. Labour's credibility took a hit, but so does the credibility of Parliament. The party, under Keir Starmer's leadership, had presented itself as a champion for the rights of renters. With Ali's department, Labour's stance on homelessness and renters' rights is now under intense scrutiny. The question that looms is whether Labour will continue to champion these causes without appearing disingenuous. And even within Labour, there were calls for Ali's resignation. Critics highlighted the glaring contradiction between her role as a minister responsible for homelessness and her own behaviour as a landlord. The moral authority of any government minister on an issue as sensitive as homelessness is crucial, and Ali's personal involvement in gentrification practices significantly undermined her position. Rushanara Ali's case raises larger questions about the conflict of interest inherent in MPs who serve as landlords. Should MPs, especially those in roles that directly impact vulnerable communities, be allowed to be landlords, let alone scum landlords? This issue is more than about one individual. If an MP is in a position to influence housing policy while profiting from rental market, how can the public be sure their decisions are made with the best interests of tenants in mind? The backlash against Ali highlights the need for greater regulation around the dual role of MPs as lawmakers and landlords, and the moral burden placed on those who hold power is considerable, and the expectation is that they lead by example. The Renters' Rights Bill, which is aimed at curbing rent hikes and evictions, could benefit from stricter provisions that prevent conflicts of interest for those in charge of enforcing housing laws. And the resignation of Ali has left the Labour Party in a difficult position, but it's also sparked a wider conversation about hypocrisy in politics. Ali's actions were met with outrage from the public, especially from those in housing charities and renters' unions who have campaigned for years to fight against landlord exploitation. Ben Toomey from Generation Rent called Ali's conduct shocking and stressed that her position had become untenable. I think her position not only as a minister but as an MP His sentiments were echoed by other political figures and housing activists who viewed her resignation as a necessary but insufficient first step. The Conservative Party, of course, wasted no time in seizing on Ali's resignation as evidence of Labour's failure to deliver on its promises. Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader, was quick to point out the hypocrisy, calling for a complete overhaul of Labour's housing policy. And this criticism, though predictable, also underscored the political capital to be gained by accusing a government of hypocrisy, especially when it involves such a sensitive issue as homelessness. The resignation of Rushanara Ali serves as a sharp reminder that politicians must be held to a higher standard of integrity, particularly when their actions directly impact the most vulnerable members of society. And while Ali's resignation may close this chapter for her, the questions raised about her conduct will linger. It is clear that political leaders must not only advocate for change, but must also demonstrate it through their own behaviour. And her resignation doesn't absolve the wider systemic issues surrounding housing, homelessness and rent exploitation. However, it does signal the need for greater accountability, both for individuals and for the systems they uphold. This case serves as a cautionary tale, as do as I say, not as I do politics, reminding us that in a world increasingly sceptical of politicians, actions surely speak louder than words.